Hello, this is Jen, the Liberty Lion. Today we're going to talk about privates versus commissioned officers. This is from, I believe it's history.loc, or no, I'm sorry, it's memory.loc.gov. It's Library of Congress, but the historical records, so it's history.loc.gov. Journals from the Continental Congress. So I showed you in a previous video from 1776 where the United States existed in 1776. So in the Journals of the Continental Congress, they reference the United States as their military force. So the United States is now and always was created as their joint military force of the states. But they had two different types of people. They had the people who were members of the military, who were commissioned officers. And once they became members and commissioned officers, they became citizens of the United States. The militia were the privates. Some of the militia members who were privates were the upper ranking militia, and they were non-commissioned officers. In the Journals of the Continental Congress, Wednesday, April 4th, 1787, item 88 of 100, this was from a search that I did. So I go down here, and it's on page 154. I didn't save the page image. I only saved the results. It says 1 troop of cavalry of 60 non-commissioned officers and dragoons. So the non-commissioned officers are the privates of the militia, because the militia came from the private class of people, not the members of the United States. This private class of people came from the free, sovereign, and independent states. The free, sovereign, and independent states, when assembled, were assembled as the United States of America and Congress assembled. And when assembling as the military, it's the United States and Congress assembled. So you have two different forces here. One of the civil force, the United States of America and Congress assembled, and one of the military force, the United States and Congress assembled. The militia comes from the United States of America, but once they're called into service, they come under the commander-in-chief as president of the United States, and they are the land and naval forces as a militia called into service under the United States. So their troop of cavalry of 60 non-commissioned officers, their upper-ranking private militia and dragoons, that as the recruiting service has not commenced in the states of New Hampshire and Rhode Island, the commissioned officers appointed by the said states be deranged. So let's talk about this for a minute, and I go over this in a lot of my videos. Commissioned officers versus non-commissioned officers. Let me do this here. Commissioned officers are public officers. They become members of the United States, commissioned by the President of the United States, becoming part of the land and naval forces. Now, back then, it wasn't the same as it was now. Back then, they didn't have enlisted, I don't believe. I've never seen that they did anywhere. They had civilians who worked under them. The civilians working on the military post as part of the military force, but not in the military force, were still from the private class of people, but they were under the executive, who is the president of the United States of America. So you have civilians on a military post working for the commissioned officers who can be ordered by the president as the executive of the United States of America. And then you have the actual members of the military working on post as commissioned officers who are members of the land and naval forces who come under the commander-in-chief of the United States. So you have the United States of America and you have the United States. You have on the military post and you have off the military post. You have civilians, you have military, and you have privates. You have non-commissioned officers, and then you have the regular privates. So the non-commissioned officers are the militia, but they're upper-ranking militia. And then you have simply the privates. When they're called into service, they come under the Commander-in-Chief of the United States. Then you have the commissioned officers who are on the military post or on federal lands 24/7 because they're part of the manning of every military post, which has to stay manned. If it's not manned, it can be overtaken. These are commissioned officers who receive their commission from the president as commander-in-chief of the United States, and they become, once they're commissioned, citizens of the United States. United States, not United States of America. They are chosen by the states. The commissioned officers are chosen by the states. That works because the states choose which officers they want to be on the military post inside their state on the federal lands. Those people, before they're commissioned, when they're selected by the legislatures of the states, go to the district court of record and make an application. The president approves or disapproves the application. If it's approved, the person receives a commission and moves himself, his family, if he has one, and his personal property onto the military post. This is an impost tax. All his private property is then taxed. Whatever he takes off the military post is also taxed. While he's on the military post, if he wants to use the public lands to make extra money for like farming, ranching, distilling liquors, he has to get permission. This is the same as it is now, except for they have to ask permission for any job, not just for using public lands. When a commissioned officer living on a federal post uses public lands for his own profit, he has to pay a tax, and that's where the tax is in the Constitution. Okay, so you have non-commissioned upper-ranking people of the militia, which is comprised of the private class of people of the United States of America. That's where the private people are, the United States of America. That's where the civil government is, the United States of America. The privates and the militia. But the states together form a constant military force on lands regulated by the federal government as the United States. On those lands are the commissioned officers, the officers selected by the states, approved by the President of the United States, acting as Commander-in-Chief, who gives them a commission, and they receive their commission for a certain number of years. Back in the old days, when the Constitution was first written, they could hire civilians from the private class of people of the United States of America to work on the military post. But they didn't have a commission, so they didn't come under the commander-in-chief. They came under the president as the executive officer. And they could therefore then be given mandates and such by the president. Later on, we have enlisted people. Those enlisted people are not commissioned, they're called active duty. So it's sort of like they come from the states to become United States citizens, not citizens of the United States, because they're enlisted and they still come from the private class of people, the non-commissioned officers, the private class of people of the United States of America working on the military post under the commissioned officers as United States citizens. But the commissioned officers, as members having a commission, are citizens of the United States and therefore then qualify after 7 years to be chosen as a representative, or after 9 years to be chosen as a senator, because senator means senior. That's what a senator is, a senior officer. Or after 14 years, president of the United States and executive of the United States of America, who is also the president, who holds 2 offices, or so it appears. So here we have 1 troop cavalry of 60 non-commissioned officers and privates. And there is some more information in here on privates. It's in here somewhere. You can screenshot this if you want. The committee appointed to take into consideration the present military establishment of the United States, because the United States is the military establishment. The military establishment of the United States. The United States of America is does not have a military. It has a militia. And the militia goes to work for the United States when the United States needs to defend the country. And back in those days, the military was simply the commissioned officers. To be a commissioned officer, you have to become a member. You become a member by application, and you become commissioned through your commission paperwork signed by the president. And so that's the difference between the United States of America, who has a militia, and private citizens who go to work for the president as commander-in-chief when they're called into service, and the United States, who is a military force with commissioned officers who stay in service 24/7 for the length of their commission. And then you have civilians who are private people who are not in the military. They're not members of the military. They're not citizens of the United States or citizens of the federal government or citizens of the military or members of the military. They are simply civilians working on the military post under the commissioned officers as employees. And that's a big distinction we also need to make. The civilians of the private class of people of the United States of America can go to work on a military post under the commissioned officer as an employee. Back in those days, the first ones they had were just clerks. They were just clerks working for the commissioned officers. Okay, so a short video on private, public servants, non-commissioned, private, militia, United States of America, commissioned officers, civilians working on post, and United States. And hopefully this clears up a lot of stuff for people. And if it doesn't, just listen to the video again. Sometimes when I don't understand something, I just listen to it over and over and over again until I finally get it. Okay, so with that, you guys have a great day and enjoy the warm weather while we have it, and I'll see you in the next video.